Hello, my name is Cheryl Delk-LeGood. I'm the Executive Director for English USA, the Association of English Language Programs in the U.S., and you are listening to EdUp, Accelerated Excellence.
The EdUp Accelerated Excellence podcast is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EDUPXE15OFF. Learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
Welcome to EdUp Accelerated Excellence, the podcast for the advancement of educational excellence and equity. This episode I promise you, this episode will be fire because I'm talking to one of my Morehouse brothers, Curtis Valentine, who is the founder of Real Men Teach. So Curtis, I'm going to kick it off to you. Will you introduce yourself to the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community?
Good to see you all. Curtis Valentine, as my brother mentioned, graduate of Morehouse College, the place where I had what we call my second day, which is the second greatest day of my life. The first one was the day I was born. The second day I found out why. And ever since then, been really fighting for people who look like me, particularly Black men in this world, through the work I do as founder of Real Men Teach, as professor at the University of Maryland College Park, and a director at the Progressive Policy Institute, which is a think tank in Washington, D.C. that we directs federal, local, and state policy and education. So it's glad to be here.
Curtis, welcome to the show. So I've heard you mention that you didn't choose education, but education chose you. Can you share a moment when you felt that calling kicked in for you?
So you've done your research. I love that, bro. I do a lot of podcasts. I speak a lot, but rarely do I get quoted. So I'm loving it, bro, already. So I will say it happened a few years ago when I moved into a new office at PPI in DC, and I wanted to decorate my office with a photograph of a Black founded school in history. Went online, couldn't find any. And so I was struggling to find online just a photo I want to put in my office and sort of reflect on the history of education. A couple weeks later, I'm in Virginia, Gracie, Virginia, where my dad's family originates, the Valentines and the Chavises. And I went to my Uncle Willie. If you're Black in America, everybody got an Uncle Willie somewhere. And so my Uncle Willie, I said, Uncle Willie, I'm looking for an old school I can take a photo of and hang in my office. Because Curtis is an old school right there next to St. Mark's Church. The St. Mark's Church you've been coming to every summer since you were a kid that worshiped, when we come to our reunions. And I said, no, that's an old shed. I want an old school. He said, Curtis, that is a school. That is the Carol Boyd School, and that is where your grandfather learned how to read. Within 5 minutes, I'm in my car and I'm driving to this school, which is, half a mile from where I was sitting with Uncle Willie. And I'm standing in front of the school, and I'm realizing my history all at once. This school that I had seen a million times, the school was co-founded by my great-grandfather, Beverly Valentine. It was a school where his son, Willie Valentine, who was the father of the Willie I was standing in front of, started a bus company where his sons drove the bus and where he created wealth in a community that had no traffic lights. The same school where my great aunt, Lorraine Valentine, prepared school lunches, but eventually opened up her own restaurant, only Black women-owned restaurant in town to this day. And so I came to sort of this understanding that while I've been in education off and on for 18 years, I'm looking at 100-year-old school and understanding that my great-grandfather, who I never met, had a dream for me and for his ancestors to build a school in connection with Julius Rosenwald, who was a part of a larger American story we can talk about in Booker T. Washington, and connecting to an HBCU, St. Paul College, which unfortunately right now is defunct. And so my story of the past, where I was presently, but also the future. The idea that HBCUs are dying, and that the impact it's had on our community and sustaining us throughout Reconstruction, Jim Crow, systematic racism, and the like. That we would be losing them, and that it would not be a five-alarm fire is when that bothered me. And so when I realized that early Valentine and my family were part of history, it sort of set me on a trajectory of learning more and more and actually going further back in history. This school was founded in 1926, but through research, I found that I had connections to other African Americans in U.S. history who were involved in education that we can talk about as well. But I realized that I'm part of a arc in history of Valentines and Chavis's, who were educators, school founders, and folks who have been a part of the American education going back to the founding of this country.
You talk about this notion of a shack. I think we can all picture that, a building you've driven by or passed by for years and not realizing the importance of that particular institution and its legacy on your current day opportunities and shaping your perspective as an individual and as an educator and as a learner, really. So that's really powerful. And yes, I do have an Uncle William.
Well, let me say this. This is part of a larger story of erasure. While there were 5,000 Rosenwald schools that were founded from Texas all the way to Maryland, 85 to 90% of those schools no longer exist or no longer standing. Mm-hmm. There's all minority of schools that have been repurposed for like community centers, and some that are like mine that are sort of in disrepair and are in jeopardy of this, becoming extinct. And the less and less my children, grandchildren understand about their history, the easier it is for people who want to. I'm beginning to use the word annihilate. I don't like being nice around word. Annihilate us. It's easy right. When they can convince us that we never were and that we never could be. But the opposite is telling our history and explaining who we were, understanding what we're capable of. And that's something that HBCUs like Morehouse and others have done. But one, it's incredibly necessary. But is it strategic in how they're trying to cut it down? I will say one thing. We are in this place politically in this country, and a lot of it stems from an event that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia, same state. And those folks understand what happened. It all started from the celebration by one side and denigration on the other side of monuments in Virginia to the Confederacy.
Right.
Now, one side thought that if we can maintain these symbols, which were built after the emancipation, right? These are not before that. These are things that they put up in order to create this false sense of power, that they understand the power of symbols more than anybody.
Absolutely.
And so when they put up their symbols and then tear down ours, it is strategic and it can have a detrimental impact on an entire generation if we let it happen.
Yeah, we also refer to that as memory making.
Mm-hmm.
When you have policies that are strategic in silencing certain voices or erasing particular perspectives, all of these efforts are not only have an effect on the educational system, but they are political acts, social acts, but also political acts.
Yep, powerful acts. But I mean, you want to get back to Carter G. Woodson, miseducation. You want to talk about how if you can control the mind, you can control the body, and the way they're going about trying to control the mind will push us into a direction to self-select out of things. Right? They have to tell you, they don't have to not allow you to go to a school. We want to apply to the school to begin with. They won't tell you can't live in a community or you can't get into that college. We will just say that we're not capable, worthy, all the things. And so it has this effect of helping to control our actions by controlling our thoughts. And the opposite is also true, that we can control our thoughts and truly empower ourselves by our history, that it will direct us in spaces that we were never, we couldn't imagine. And so this is so important. It is the attack on the mind and our ambitions in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah. So I want to get a bit to your work with Real Men Teach, as you mentioned in your introduction. But outside of that work, how has your personal journey as a learner specifically, and a graduate of, again, our alma mater, Morehouse College, which is the nation's only all-male HBCU. How has that P12 or P20 experience shaped your view on equity in education today?
Well, I'm a walking, talking example of the power of education, but also the negative impact it could have on you. And so I grew up in a loving community, working class family in New Jersey, with parents who just tried their best, put me in front of and put me in spaces where I could succeed. I also understood that there were some, I don't want to say deficiencies, but issues that I had learning at a certain pace, but also with my speech. And so you can't tell it now. I had a slight stutter as a child, but even up until the 5th or 6th grade, I was reading on about a 2 or 3 grade levels behind. As you know, with Black boys, when you are compliant and when you are obedient, they don't say much. You don't really get the attention. If you're not sort of on the sort of the uber fast learner track, or you're not in the track where you're disruptive, you sort of fall in this middle where you can get lost. So I got lost until a teacher, and I want to give her credit, Miss Baltuck, took to me and reached out and worked with me and another friend of mine during her lunch break and pushed us and saw potential in us that in many ways I don't think others did. And so I give her thanks for what she did, because it really pushed me to see my potential. Eventually, similarly, when I went to middle school, I had probably the Black man who had the greatest impact on my educational journey. Mr. Wade was my middle school principal, who saw this really short kid with a slight stutter and put me in places where I had to sort of step up. So I eventually became the Student Government Association president for the middle school, even though I was the shortest kid in school. I'm a little tall now, but I started school early. I was, I think, 4 foot, maybe 8, 7 in the 8th grade. Just picture that. I'm 6'2" now. So imagine but what he did was something that I think, this is on part why I started Real Men Teach. Mr. Wade would do something, Jacob, that I think is so powerful. So people would come to the school to visit the school, administrators from the county or from the district, visitors. And instead of him giving them a tour of the school, he would take me out of class and ask me to give these adults a tour of the school. I get a call, Curtis Valentine, please come out to the main office. I'm walking in. Mr. Wade would say, I want you all to meet Curtis Valentine. He's our SJ president. He's going to give you all a tour of the school. When he's done, he's going to bring you all back to me, and then we'll have our meeting. And I'm walking around the school, and these adults are following me. And I'm saying, this is our library. This is our cafeteria. This is this hallway. And he put me like in that moment. You just imagine, I'm 12 years old. I started little school a little early. I'm 12 years old, 4 foot nothing. And these folks are following me around, asking me questions, and I'm actually giving them answers. And then I pick back to and I go back to class. A couple of days later, I get a phone call, come down to the main office. We're giving a certificate of appreciation to some student. We need you to come and sign a certificate. So my name is getting on certificates. Curtis Valentine approved some others. So I'm signing the certificate next to the principal's name of students in my school. And you'd imagine that to do with a kid who's dealing with, self-esteem, confidence. And that set me up on a trajectory, I think, that got me into high school and then to college, and Morehouse took my confidence and put a battery in it in a way that I hadn't seen. And then my life, I'll talk about those men later. But I think that K-12 experience really, really helped me. I will say there's one other one that in high school, I played football, started a little late. I remember telling my high school football coach, I'm applying to Morehouse. And he told me I wouldn't get in.
Wow.
And I wasn't sure. And so the thing that just sort of confounded me was the fact that I don't think he knew my grades or my GPA, my SAT. I'm like, I don't remember telling him my SAT score, my GPA. Like, why do you think I can't get in? Mm-hmm. And, that was probably the first time somebody told me, like, outright that you're incapable. But this is a person who, this is a white man, who I thought was for me. And I think that was sort of a very eye-waking, an awakening moment, because I think I needed that going into Atlanta, going to Morehouse, understanding, Kurt, not everybody's going to be for you. And it's fine. Just don't, I'll tell them, I don't receive it. You can kind of give it to me, but I don't receive it. But I think for young boys, including my own son, that I try to shield him from those things. But I think he also needs a little taste of Curtis. My son's also name is Curtis. Not everybody's for you, and so you have to understand that. Understand how to duck and dodge all the negativity and push forward. But yeah, that's my K-12 experience. Getting into Morehouse again, we can talk a little bit about that. But that was the most life-changing experience I've ever had in my life, to be around men like you and others that just told me that the sky is the limit, and not just sort of in conjecture or sort of in rhetoric, but it was in actuality, and I saw it living and breathing every single day, and it will change you in ways that you could never imagine.
Yeah, as you were talking about being in elementary school, and you are and your principal is having you to give tours, and you're engaging with adults from the community. I envision him setting you up for statesmanship. And so as you think about it, it's really powerful today, the platform that you have now, where you are, in a sense, giving folks a tour of possibilities and helping them to reach those possibilities. So I really appreciate your principle, but it speaks to the power of educators for good and sometimes not for the best. So had you not had the fortitude to be able to, and perhaps you may have seeped in a bit, that internalization of low expectations, but having another community going to college that, then you're absolutely right, embraces you at a HBCU. It's an experience like none other. And it really is transformative. That freshman year, how you forget the rest of the world exists outside of what's happening on campus and in the Atlanta University Center, because you have Morehouse, Spelman, Morris Brown, Clark. Then it was Atlanta University. That was Clark. It was Atlanta University at that time. Now it's Clark Atlanta University, and the Theological Center. So all these great institutions with young people just teeming with excitement, intellect, energy. It helps you to see the potential of yourself reflected in the eyes of others.
Well, I'll say this, and I'm remiss in not mentioning that Mr. Wade went to Hampton University. And he thought everybody should go to Hampton the way I think every black boy should go to Morehouse. I mean, we are one of the same. I will also mention that on my street, working class street in New Jersey, to my knowledge, the only two college educated people on my street were a couple who met at Delaware State University. One was a school principal, one was a teacher. And my life is in many ways sort of a reflection of theirs as well. And it's seeing how they carried themselves, how confident they were, the car they drove. They were the only house in the street in the whole neighborhood with an in-ground pool. It was like, okay, this HBCU thing. This is around the same time as A Different World, obviously, and in the Cosby Show and in School Days and these things. And, this idea that HBCUs alumni had such an impact on my life. My best friend's father went to Central, mom went to Fisk, I think. Similarly, they were the one family in the crew that lived on the other side of town with the big houses, and they were like, "Oh, this HBCU thing." And his neighbors were Morgan State alums, husband and wife, and they would take us on trips. The first time I really visited an HBCU and saw it in real life was Morgan State on a bus ride, and it was, I think, the more I reflect back on these HBCU alums who were very influential in my life. And it makes sense. And so as an HBCU alum, my wife's an HBCU alum, we take it on as a challenge, but as an opportunity to say that even if you don't go to HBCU or you don't go to college as well, I'm going to bring my Morehouse, my Hampton, my Fisk, my North Carolina Central to your street. Wherever I go, I'm going to see in you what my professor saw in me. And it's contagious, but one that I'm drafting off of even years later.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to EdUp Accelerated Excellence. This episode is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EdUPXE15OFF. Check out the details in the show notes or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
So we're talking to Curtis Valentine, founder of Real Men Teach. Curtis, you and your colleagues, Victorious Hall and Albert Lewis, I hope I have their names right, founded the Male Educator Network of Prince George's County in Maryland. That's a public school district. What were the conditions leading to this development?
Good question. So when I joined the school board in 2013, I was the only member of the school board who had ever taught in the school district. And when I decided to join the school board, I wanted to have a project that I worked on specifically in addition to everything else in my duties. And I'm at an event, and it was celebrating the Teacher of the Year for that year. And Albert Lewis happened to be Teacher of the Year. Now, Albert Lewis and Victorious Hall, again, I remind you, are both Morgan State alums. I got to give them credit. They were, the national treasure, they call it. But the thing about Albert Lewis was he was about 28 years old. 28-year-old Black boy from Morgan State University is the Teacher of the Year in a 9,000 teacher district.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, man, like this is news. Like, something that in this day and age, that was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, this day and age would be like national news. How does this young man become the best teacher in the district at this large? And so I said, well, hey, bro, I would love to work with you on something. I had taught middle school, 8th grade language art to myself. I think he was a middle school teacher. I said, bro, we got to work together. But I think even in that time, I was still sort of in research mode. And I've always been someone who's really just curious and someone who's like just wants to ask a bunch of questions. I said, let's just bring some guys together before we make a decision on what to do and just listen to people, which is sort of, I think, and we all should do. Just listen first. It will make your job much easier. All right. So we started convening men from the district, and we just sort of like having like very simple conversations. Like, how are you doing? Very simple. How's it going? Like, what are you most proud of? What are you worried about? Do you plan on staying in teaching? Do your friends plan on things? Why did you teach to begin with? What do you love about it? What will you change? Just sort of very simple questions. And the more security we gave them and the fact that their answers would be, anonymous, the more open and transparent people got. And so that really created the Male Educator Network, myself and Victoria. And there were others who also helped us. We're at the beginning, including Mr. Wade, my middle school principal, who actually relocated to Maryland. So I brought my middle school principal with me everywhere I went. He still lives about less than 20 minutes from me. He relocated here because his kids were here. And I just couldn't imagine what he thought about this protege of his, who's now on the school board, putting together these big events that he found when he was, when I was a lowly 11-year-old, and now I'm a grown man with kids. And so I bring him along, and I would say my favorite teacher in the world is sitting right there. And that made it a lot more impactful. But through that organization, we did a couple things. We started doing workshops on areas that men said they wanted to improve on. The beauty of this workshops was we had men in our group who were actually facilitating the workshop, meaning we didn't have to go out and hire somebody and look for someone to do what we already did. We just said, can anyone do the thing that these brothers want done? I can do that. All right, then you're in charge. And so one of the first things we did was we did interviewing one-on-one, because men were saying, I want to leave the classroom, become an administrator, but I keep interviewing and not getting the job. And another brother said, every job I interviewed for, I got. Here's how I've done it. All right, bro, you're going to present first. How do you get all the interviews? How do you get all the jobs that you want? What are you doing? Prepare. And then we're going to start doing mock interviews for each other. And so we do dress up. Hey, we're going full on. And this is a simulation, but I want you to act like you're going to the real interview, dress like you are. We're going to come and we're going to give you feedback, Morehouse style. Take it in love, bro, but we want you to win. And then what happened, people started coming back saying, I got the job. Okay, now we're on to something. So we started advertising, people giving testimony about the job. Then we started talking about people wanting to help their schools out by getting more money for this project or that project. And so we taught people how to come to school board meetings and advocate for their school, in addition to being a school teacher. Because we had men who were really good at advocating for their school and putting together really strong campaigns around getting the school board to support their school. And we started doing projects on how to work with local businesses to help maybe refurbish your football field, how to get Home Depot to come in and sponsor a baseball field. But how do you do that? So we did a speed dating. We brought all these businesses together into a room, and we did everybody just 10 minutes, and you'd move, talk to Home Depot, talk to Chick-fil-A, talk to the local power company, and all those different things. And then probably the most impactful thing we did was we did an annual award ceremony. We would honor one male teacher and one father from every school. Now we had 200 schools.
Wow.
And so we would honor 400 men every year. And then we invited all fraternities out and all the male educator groups out. Male groups, like 100 black men, concerned black men.
Right.
And they would line the stage. We'd have every 400, all 400, we'd say each of their name and give them a certificate. We said, we're going to be here all night. We'll be here all night. They would show up with their kids and their students and their mamas. And they had these signs saying, that's my favorite teacher. That's my dad. That's my mom. And the news started picking it up. And what ends up happening, now I'm going to wrap this up. We were killing it 3, 4, 5 years in a row. And then COVID hits.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to go virtual, which let us go viral. And so we went virtual. It all started saying, where are you guys from? What are you doing? How do we get one? And that's the sort of the birth of Real Men Teach.
Hey, I appreciate it. That's powerful. That is an example of educational excellence. And in some ways, it speaks to a systematic approach to educational excellence, because you holding the seat as a board member, bringing in community members, but uplifting current teachers is absolutely powerful. And you also got to my next question, because I wanted to ask you, how did that segue? Or how was that the impetus for Real Men Teach? But let's get into that. So Real Men Teach is an output of the network, as you just mentioned, expanding or attending to male educators, not only nationally, but I would say the work has reached international ground. For those not familiar with Real Men Teach, what would you say to them about this movement?
Question. And like me, if you ask someone who I am and what I do, you'll get 10 different answers. And in many ways, you'll be correct in every single way. I think Real Men Teach similarly is many things to many people. To some, we are a visual representation of what's possible. Meaning, if you watch us on social media, we post every day images that are creating a sense of what's possible visually. And we live in a very visual time where most people, young people, are using images to connote, messages. And so it all started when my sister, who was an attorney, saw me using the hashtag Real Men Teach, even when I was pre-COVID. She said, Kurt, you ever thought about trademarking that? And I had never done it before, wasn't familiar with it. She's a lawyer, but she kind of says, Kurt, if you trademark it, you could use it and potentially, however you, and the time from that point on, what would you want to do with it? At the time, I was obviously we're doing the award ceremony, and I had this feeling of how do we celebrate men? Well, we celebrated them on that stage and in those places. And so I decided to create a clothing line that allowed us to generate scholarship money for men. I said we could get 2 in 1. We could actually put out positive images that really just displace the negative images of men of color that we see every day, that shapes policy and narratives around who we are. You see images of men doing negative things, you think we're negative. You see images of people who look like us doing positive things, you think they're positive. This goes back to the baby doll test. You know all this stuff, going back to Kendrick Clark and all those things. And the power of social media, the power of media to shape images and policies around policing and housing and things that affect us. And so what I did was, this is probably the most powerful part of the story, started this clothing line using a platform that allowed me to not have to, put up a bunch of money. So it was always print to order. And so I started a clothing line. I wanted to make sure we had multiple colors that allowed everyone to sort of reflect our brand, but in their own way, whether it be your fraternity, your college, your high school, or your favorite colors. And so I sat there one day, Jake, and I text message, 100 of my closest friends. And I said, hey, bro, really quickly, man, I'm starting a clothing line. We're going to generate money for scholarships. But if you get one, please send us a photograph. We're going to celebrate you on social media and to tell the world that you're an amazing person. And I asked students, I asked people, I said, I sent out 100 text messages. How many yeses do you think I got from people who said, I will buy one? And I'd tell the story and people will say 5, 10, 20, 30. I will say I got 100 yeses. And they're like, are you kidding me? And I'll say, yeah. And I said, the most common response I got was, Curtis, bro, we've been waiting for you. I've been watching you, loving what you're doing. And I'm just waiting. I was waiting for a way to get involved in supporting you. And so I'm going to get 2, 3. I'm going to buy a bunch of my people. So we started off celebrating. So we're going to do 100 men for 100 straight days wearing our gear and then doing profiles of them, their name, where they went to school, their interests, to humanize us in a way that we don't really get humanized in popular culture. After 100 days, Jake, I had 100 more men who have been nominated or who have been bought hoodies and said, I want to be a part of this campaign. And then after that, 100 more. And that was 5 years ago. We had never stopped. We couldn't.
Snowballing.
And then we started getting people saying, I'm seeing all this stuff on social media. I'm looking for an 8th grade math teacher. Are any of the math teachers, are any of them willing to work here? And then they said, without me responding, what they said was, can I advertise for this job on your website, we'll pay you. Oh, so you pay me to advertise? I'm like, people do that. They do pay people to advertise for jobs. I said, oh, well, I don't need the money, but would you support our scholarship fund? That's what we really want to get the money to. So we started getting school districts and nonprofits and universities who want to get access to this community that we built in exchange for supporting our scholarship fund. And the results we've seen are tremendous, but it's a way for us to celebrate, connect, build community, and empower. And I'll say the last thing I'll say is the most positive quote, or 2 of them I'll say. The first one was when a brother, he sent us a photo of him in a blank sweatshirt. Say, hey man, I want to get nominated for Real Men. I said, well, we nominate brothers who wear our gear. And he says, what do you mean? I said, I'm not sure. What do you mean? Like, you go on our website, you buy one. He says, all the men that you've been nominating are wearing your shirts? And I said, I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean? He says, I thought you were superimposing your logo on people. And I said, oh, you thought that they had not purchased all this. And it was sort of like a backhand compliment of, all these guys can't possibly be supporting you. Like the way I see it has to be you taking stock photos and you doing it because everyone else does. There's no genuine grassroots support for anything I've seen like this other than people sort of maneuvering. And I said, wow. And then eventually realized he bought 2. The second quote, I'll stop here, was when a brother from New Jersey who had been the one person in his school district really fighting for men in education. He says, Curtis, when I found Real Men Teach, I found my tribe. I've been doing it all by myself out here, man, all alone. I'm a one person army. And when I found y'all, I found people like myself. And so the one guy in Akron, the one guy in Minneapolis, the one guy in Providence, the one guy in Camden, the one guy in Columbus, Georgia, or Columbia, South Carolina says, I'm alone. I used to be alone, but now I found my community. I found my tribe. And that's what Real Men Teach is.
Hey, that's beautiful. I do it. That is interesting though, that he had a blank shirt but it's almost saying, listen, I have on a blank shirt. I'm going to allow you to superimpose your effect on me. Mm-hmm. I want to be connected to that work.
Yep. It was a compliment. Yeah. But then also someone also said, if you all our stuff, and we were using a magazine cover format in order to celebrate. So you send us a photograph, we'd format it, make like a magazine cover. We do all the heading. And someone said to me, Jacob, he said, where can we buy the magazine? I said, oh, that's so. I said, it's not an actual. I would love for it to be an actual magazine, but it's not a magazine.
Not yet.
But I guess you could call it a virtual magazine because we're posting articles, in some cases, jobs, opportunities, scholarships, and things that you interviews in some way, TikToks. That magazine used to be for our generation, but this generation, they do it through social media.
So Curtis, I'm actually hearing a trend. All of these initiatives have developed, and Real Men Teach has grown, and its outreach have all developed organically.
Mm-hmm.
School board member, you notice something, you have a conversation, folks say, I have a need, let's pull people together. Now you have this campaign going. Oh, how can I get involved? Oh, how can I contribute? How can I post my my job posting and I'll pay you for it? All of this in the effort to uplift men who are interested in the profession of education.
Yeah, I mean, the couple things that I get from people, again, who tell me this is, Curtis, I realize you're doing it for the right reasons. And whatever that right reason means to them. And so for those who are listening, people can tell when you're being fake, right? And so your goal is to be the truest you can be. I listen to a lot of like battle rap. For those who don't know this is my thing. I listen to a lot of hip hop. And there's a rapper named Goods who I like a lot. And he has a quote who says, why be 20% you when I could be 100% me? Like, why would I be a fake, poor representation of somebody else than being an 100% authentic version of myself? Because that's what really people are attracted to me and other people is. Right. It's not this sort of it is like, wow, you are just you're a real down to earth brother. You're doing it. That's one thing. Second thing is being, I call the word being present. There are people who could like, and so there are people who've probably been in the same position I've been in and been in some of the same rooms. But sometimes if you're not listening, and your head is somewhere else, or in some little way, you're on your phone, like you're just like sort of doom scrolling in a public place, and you're missing the signals that God is trying to give you around the dots that are being connected. And if you're not paying attention, you will just miss out on these blessings that are being dropped in you. The third thing I'll say is, and this is people asking all the time, what should I do? I'll say, don't wait until you're ready. Go now. And I think if I had waited until it was just right, or until I had reached a certain point, or I don't have enough social media follow, all the things, that I would have missed opportunities and windows. And so for those who are listening, do it. Because as I mentioned before, people are waiting for you. People are like, Kurt, bro, we're just waiting. We sitting here waiting for you, and you thinking, if I only had support, and your village is like waiting to help you. And when I present the kids about this and students, they're like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah, you have people around you who are waiting to help you. They do. They're just waiting for you to sort of do something that they could connect with that is tangible. And so I did something that I think they could connect with and that they could also take with them. So a lot of people don't know who I am. They never met me before in their life. But when they see someone else wearing it, Governor Wes Moore or Killer Mike or somebody, to them, Killer Mike, Wes Moore, Superintendent, you fill in the blank, is wearing it. He is Real Men Teach to them. And because he knows them better than I'll ever know them, I would much more rather have him put him in out front than me. There's some founders who want to say, well, no, I want to be like Oprah magazine is. I want to be able to cover every issue. Like, that's not me. I'm not going to cover their issue. And most of the pictures you see on my website are not even of me. It doesn't have to be. But the funny part, once in a while, somebody will see me wearing this shirt and say, oh, where do you get that shirt from? I see them all over the place. Da, 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 da. I'm like, yeah, and then I'll show them I have a tattoo with Women Teach on my arm. Oh my gosh, you really down? I'm like, well, it's my organization. Oh, that's yours? I see it everywhere. You're Real Men Teach. Like, yes, I didn't know you were. Exactly. Because it's not about me. It's about those who take it and say it's mine, and then they could sort of propel it forward. And that's the organic piece. If you control it and you sort of like want to stifle it. And so the one thing I'll say that wrap this up is the most common answer I give people when they call me or message me is yes. They'll say something like, have you ever tried to? No, we haven't, but we'll give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? It just not work? That would put us in the same place we are now. Hey, what do y'all think about doing it? I've never tried it, but why not? What's the worst that could happen? Well, can you all do this? We haven't done it before, but we'll try it. And so then don't suffocate it. Because that thing could be the thing that actually makes it take off. And so that's one thing I try to be more, very deliberate about, is letting others connect. It's a lot of what we've done. Like even this partnership with Michigan State University started because the dean of the College of Education sent me a DM through LinkedIn. Not his assistant, not a deputy, not a program manager, not an intern, the actual dean. You the dean? You all send messages to people? I love what you're doing. I have a shirt already. I wear it all the time. People are stopping me. I want to work with you. And then I said, well, what do you want to do? You want to do this? And I said, Michigan State University, College of Education, the #1 college of education in America by U.S. News and World Report, wants to work with me. Let's do it. Whatever. Let's go. And that's my answer. Don't let your ego stifle it. Let people help you ideate, and because if you let them ideate, they will take they will own it and fight for it in a way that you couldn't.
So we're listening to Curtis Valentine, founder of Real Men Teach. And Curtis, you're in my head, I think, because I wanted to ask you the question about what advice would you give other educational leaders trying to turn a movement into a sustainable brand or organization like Real Men Teach. You already talked about this notion of being authentic, being present, listening, answering the call. So when an opportunity comes, you need to be ready for it. Is there anything else you would add to what someone might do if they want to have a movement that is sustainable like yours?
The one thing that, 2 things. One is more simple, one is more hard. The simple one is, if you can, invest in yourself, and in investing in yourself, give things away. So for example, if you're saying, Kurt, sounds really nice, I don't have 100 friends, but I want to start a clothing line that's mission driven, it's going to be a way for me to channel something else. Can you afford 5 shirts? Invest in yourself to do that. I can afford 5. Do you have 5 friends? I have 5 friends. Invest in those 5 shirts. Give those to your 5 friends and ask them to just post about it. And then you use those posts in multiple ways. Ask them to do a post, ask them to do a video in it, and just slowly dribble out the things that you're doing, and it will magnify the view of how big it is. They'll think they all bought them, and they'll think that because you've repurposed those things that it's much larger than it is.
All right.
That's the easy part. The second part is a little harder, and one that I do, and it kind of runs counter to a lot of people's views. I'm very public about things that I'm doing before I've done them. And this old adage, well, don't share what you're doing, just wait till it's done, and then you can pop out on. I do the exact opposite. The minute I decide to write a book, I decided to write a book. I'm going to write a book, I'm going to publish it, right? I ain't been a word yet. But what I've done there is people saying, Curtis, I'm a book agent. I've written, I'm a ghostwriter. My sister owns a bookstore. I'm allowing people into my process to help me. Like I said, don't believe people don't want to help you. Start from the bottom, all that sort of deficit mindset. I'm just stumbling up to think that people want to help people if they believe in what you're doing. And so what allowed me to do, I'm writing a book for the last 2 years and I'm almost done. And through the book process, when I buy a new book that I'm reading that's helping me with the book, I'm announcing, new book alert, just bought this new book about Black male educators by this person, will help me with this chapter. And then someone says, hey, Kurt, what about this book? Thank you. If I didn't write that, then I wouldn't have that book recommendation. And then I would have, it's like waiting till after the meal is done and then someone saying, well, if you told me you were cooking, I would have told you to add, this to the recipe, or I would have brought a dish, or I would have told you, or I would have had you sell more. All the things that I'm much more public about, that I'm able to sort of slow drip. Oh, I'm interviewing Raphael Warnock for the book. Here's a photo of me when I asked him. He said, yes, photo, Raphael Warnock, book's coming out. Oh, Raphael Warnock. Oh, now? Oh, Jamal Bryant. Oh, Deval Patrick. Name it. They're in the book. But I didn't just land on the book and say, here's this book that I've been in 2 years writing that you ain't heard of, and now you should like it. You know what's in the book because you've been watching for 2 years. And so when you start doing pre-sales, people could say, oh man, I've been with you the whole time. And so I guess my message to people who are found is saying, if you're going to start a clothing line, announce it. Because also it creates accountability partners.
Right,
Because
right.
somebody will tell me, "Hey, Kurt, have you written this week?" And I'm like, "What do you think you're talking to, bro? Like, you my boss now." But he's doing that in support. "Hey, Kurt, you said you want to write a book, and I ain't heard nothing about the book yet. What's up, bro?" And like, if authors, we'll go a few weeks, sometimes a few months. We're like, just, man, I'm not, but because I've opened my world up, and it's a positive message, and it's a good movement. People will say, "Hey, Curtis, I know you. I don't know what it is, man, but I'm sure you're probably struggling right now. We need that book, bro. It's important. Hey, man, and then once you finish it, bro, let me know, because I got a bookstore in Akron, I got a bookstore in Kansas City, a bookstore in Indianapolis. I would love you to." And so again, one is investing in yourself, and two, don't wait to share. Allow people to help you out, because I think they really do.
Absolutely. And that's one of the rules that they tell you, for example, in programs use weight loss, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Build a community of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So telling folks what your goals are, folks will check in on you to make sure, so how are you doing? But hopefully if people are of good heart, even when you have a misstep, or, things are going a little slow, they'll encourage you as opposed to beat you up about it.
Yeah. Again, I just, this comes to other things. So people who are looking for a job but don't tell anybody, people interviewing, applying for grants. There are people I know who applied for grants to companies, didn't get it. And I'll say, man, if I knew you were applying, I would have made a phone call for you.
Yeah.
I know on the board, I could have helped you out, but you didn't tell nobody.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, for people like us, and there's, we're a small community of people who have the power to help one another. And if you don't allow us to help you, it's sort of, and sometimes you don't have a second shot at these things. And think about the other communities that do this. What they'll do before they even apply, to make them phone calls. If they know they want to work. They find out daddy's uncle's golfing buddy, whoever, grad school friend, fraternity brother works there. They ain't applied yet. Hey, I'm thinking about applying to this company. Hey, okay, don't go to the website. Don't do that. Send your resume to me and I'll do it from there. Or send your proposal, send your grant, send your whatever book proposal to me, and let me help you out. And so that's the thing that I think, using that social capital, and everybody has that, but go through that process first. Very much in the Jerry Maguire help me help you conversation. I think people do want to do that, and we got a bunch of power. We got enough power to help some people if you let us.
I have one more question for you before we get to this closing, which you're going to then tell us what's happening next in your world. We know about the book. I want you to tell us about the book. And before we get to that question, I do want to shout out that you are wearing a Michigan State branded Real Men Teach t-shirt. So that's really powerful. So I'll let you close us out with that as well. But here's the question. You have referred to Real Men Teach as the wildest dreams of your ancestors. So what do you think they would say if they saw you today and the work that you have contributed to and accomplished?
Good question. I've been asked that question before. I hope they would say, well done. I would hope they would say that, this was our dream for you from the beginning, and I'm in a level of just gratitude that I'm actually walking in it. I don't think that I'm a superhero anyway. I don't think that I'm made of anything tangibly. I think, but what's inside of me historically, and because I understand my past, and that's through people who put out in front of me, I'm a historian, and so I give them a lot of credit. That they would say, we're proud of you for digging and finding the breadcrumbs we left for you. And we're glad that you are taking what we started and carrying it on. And so that's what I hope they're saying. Our ancestors were very, very humble people. They didn't brag. It wasn't, it was sort of you just do things. Family members who need some place to stay during the Great Migration, they just took them in. They didn't ask for thank yous. They fed you. And so I don't think that they're looking for a big thank you or anything like that. I mean, if I know the great grandparents that I did know, it was all about, I'm just glad that you were able to take what I gave, what I started and carry it on because someone did it for them. And so I want to take that humility and say for my kids and those who pass it and those I mentored that, you may mention me, you may not. But the spirit that's in me and it's in my ancestors is hopefully going to be in them, and then they'll pass it on.
We're talking to Curtis Valentine, founder of Real Men Teach. And Curtis, we want to know if you can talk to the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community. What's next for you? I know you have a book coming up, an author with Real Men Teach. You are a faculty member at a university, and you work at a policy institute as well. So what can we look forward to from you, and how might we engage?
So much. I mean, I'll just start really quickly with the work I'm doing at PPI. Right now, I'm working with UNCF and another organization to really promote this idea of HBCUs starting K-12 schools on their campus in the way that they did a generation ago with our laboratory schools. So this is a project I'm working on to really celebrate and advise school HBCUs and school districts neighboring HBCUs to find ways that they could create dual enrollment in middle colleges that brings Black students to HBCU campuses as early as 9th grade, allows them to dual enroll, graduate sooner, build up enrollment the same way that they did a generation ago with the Rosenwald schools and others, but also allows for more research and connection between K-12 and higher ed. That's really something I'm really excited about. When it comes to teaching University of Maryland, finishing up the semester, I'll be teaching at I'll be actually adding another university in the DMV I'll be at a faculty position. I can't announce it yet in the fall. I'll still be at Maryland in the spring, but I'll be in the fall at another university, pretty prominent university in the DMV. I'm looking forward to teaching again this fall. The Real Men Teach Michigan State partnership, where everything you see, everything we sell, a percentage of it goes to a scholarship that will be endowed at Michigan State for men in education. Really excited about that. And also partnering with other universities in the Big Ten. The goal is not only to do it at Michigan State, but do it at other universities in the Big Ten. And some of those universities will be announced soon. But in the immediate, and I need to get this done ASAP, bro, is finish this book. Just got the interview back from Afriel Warnock, who was a student of one of the men that I'm highlighting in the book. And the book is, again, a 250-year story of men in education dating back to the 1700s. And it tells the story of education in America through the lives of 6 men, from pre-emancipation through Reconstruction, through Jim Crow, all the way up until where we are now. But the last chapter is where we can go from here. In a lot of ways, it's reflected back on where we've come. And building all we've done around education, as education entrepreneurs, as sort of freedom riders in this work, and a blueprint for the future of, in many ways, a Black-centered education for a generation that right now is, again, in jeopardy of being annihilated through the cutting and erasing of our history. So the book will be finished soon. It will not come out most likely until early next year, which will include a book tour, opportunity for me to travel around the country and convene men of color around this topic. And so we'll have different sort of gatherings in bookstores, but also coffee shops, and say, hey, here's the book. Here's a story of 250 years of men in education, but what's happening in your city? How can we help? And so I'm really looking forward to that tour to get out of the DMV and to get into these cities and communities where my tribe is, and that we can reconnect with our brothers who are in this fight.
So that's wonderful. Do you have a working title yet for the book?
Well, I'm a simple guy, man. It's called Real Men Teach.
Real Men Teach.
So hey, bro. I mean, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's again, and it's called Real Men Teach: The Future of Education in America. And so again, even though I'm going back 200 years, the goal at the end of the book is for you to have a blueprint for the future based off of what was already been able done. So it's Roman Teach. There are, other books that have sort of come to mind after this that sort of, I will get too into. But I think if this book gets to anywhere where I think it can be, it will start up a conversation of the importance of history, but also the importance of building community, particularly of men of color in education.
So Curtis, I want to thank you for this opportunity and time to learn with and from you here at Ed Up Accelerated Excellence. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
A special thanks to our research assistant, Emily Bloom, a recent graduate of Fordham University's Mental Health Counseling Program. Congratulations, Emily! And we want to hear from you. If you have feedback on this or other episodes, or would like to nominate a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com. That's edupxe.com.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience Network of educational podcasts. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Radio, and other outlets where you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us and share within your network. To leave a comment or suggest a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com.